Hello and welcome to Leading Age Virginia's podcast, Voices in Leadership. I am Melissa Andrews, President and CEO of Leading Age Virginia, and I am so excited for this episode because not only do I get to have a conversation with two incredible leaders in our field, but I'm also blessed to not just call them colleagues, but also call them friends. And so I know this is going to be super fun. So today you'll hear the voices of Nancy King and Michele Holleran. I'm going to ask them to each introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into the meat of our conversation. So Nancy, let's start with you. Thank you for being here.
Well, sure. Thank you for the invitation. And if I get to spend a few minutes with you and Michele, I am a happy girl. So it's great to be here. Happy to be a part of the Women's Leadership Task Force for Leading Age Virginia. I'm Nancy King, and I'm president of Senior Options and Westminster Canterbury at Home. We're located in Virginia Beach, and I've been here 7 years. And am enjoying my my work, my colleagues in Virginia, and my main objective in my work is to help senior living organizations expand their mission through home health and hospice.
Great, thank you, Nancy. And Michele, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my best credential is that you two are two of my best friends. So I'm so happy to be here and to have this time together. I am CEO of Holleran, and we have been in business about 30 years now, if you can believe that. It seems like yesterday when we started the company. We work primarily with not-for-profit life plan communities and have been blessed with many clients over the years. Hundreds of them. And we really enjoy what we do as well. We do all kinds of different research now, everything from resident and employee satisfaction and engagement studies. We do COVID research. We do work around diversity and inclusion. We also have assessments for culture, and we have a new well-being survey. And we're going to be launching something called the Life Plan Survey after the first of the year. So we're really excited about that too. So just really grateful to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, well, thank you for saying yes to this. In my introductory comments, I was going to refer to you both as icons in our field, which is how I feel about you, but it reminded me of a couch conversation we had together in my home a few years ago. I don't know if you remember, we were talking about icons in the field. So we're going to get to that, but I wanted to start kind of, as you think about your careers, which have been really incredible in terms of the richness of the experience, at least as an outsider observing you and knowing what I know about each of you. What do you wish you could tell your younger self who was just starting out, either just starting the company, Michele, or just starting out in the field? What advice would you give your younger self?
Go ahead, Nancy.
Well, the one thing I would tell my younger self would be to relax and invite advice from other people in the organization or around me. And I say that because I was very tense and thought I had to be perfect. And anytime anybody even gave me a smidge of feedback, I got really upset. And I look at some of the leaders that I get to work with, and they really thrive on feedback and they ask for advice. I wish I had the confidence to have done that. I think I would have learned so much more.
That's a really interesting comment because we give each other feedback all the time.
Yes.
So I think you really evolved, Nancy. Let me just say that, because you're so open to feedback now, and what a wonderful thing. I guess from my end, it's such a great question. I would trust my gut more. I think that's how I would respond, because you know, you play it by the book so much when you're just starting out in your career. And as Nancy said, you want to be perfect and you don't want to make mistakes. But mistakes are all part of it, and we learn from them. And I'm still learning from my mistakes. I would say that trusting my instincts is the most important piece of advice I would give myself as a younger person. You know, and so much of it is about trusting that I was going in the right direction, because I've had so many disparate kind of beginnings and, you know, starts that I didn't know how all the dots connected. Well, they ended up perfectly connecting. You know, I was in politics, believe it or not. I was in advertising. I was in market research. I was a journalism major. And I did, you know, work on a newspaper when I first got out of college. I had to listen to people's feedback as a journalist, obviously, by asking good questions, and writing.
Yeah.
All those skills. And so it all kind of conspired to make a wonderful tapestry eventually. But at the time I'm thinking, well, this seems all disjointed. So I guess trust your instincts that you're going in the right direction and don't second guess yourself so much.
Yeah, you kind of reminded me, Michele, in that description of the chaos loop that we talk about in the Leadership Academy, and how, you know, you don't, life is not a straight line, right? You're going to get somewhere, but there's all this stuff that happens in the middle, and you can't be prescriptive, because if you're too prescriptive, you miss opportunities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the greatest opportunities I had was when, very unexpectedly, our dear friend Larry Minix asked me to be involved in the Leadership Academy development. That came out of left field, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, how does this fit into everything? And, you know, just those unexpected opportunities you must say yes to. So that's a really good point, Melissa. Thanks for bringing it up.
Well, and almost 15 years later, right? You look at the ripple, well, we are 15 years later, I guess. Oh my gosh, wait, let me pause.
I know.
But the ripple effect, right, of that ask and you saying yes, and now we see the Leadership Academy affecting all three of us, and then people we work with and love, and all of that. So I'm going to skip my next question for a few minutes because I feel like it's diving in the deep end. But let me start with, right, well, why not, right? Why aging services for both of you? I mean, especially Michele, you have such a diverse set of experiences, but for each of you, why has aging services been what's stuck?
All right, I'll go first on that one. You know, gosh, it's the people. I have never, in all my work in the past, met such a wonderful group of people who are really and truly dedicated to the field. I mean, their hearts are so authentic and real and genuine. And, you know, after working in politics in particular, and, you know, getting to know that world, I was just craving the authenticity and the down-to-earthness, and that you can trust what people say and do in this field. And so I have to say the people, and boy, I put you two near the top of my list of everybody, because I just feel that, you know, that's what it's all about, being genuine and being who you are. And the people in this field are that.
How about you, Nancy?
Well, I would agree with the people, because there are some incredibly fine people. But what made it stick for me was I saw a way I could contribute in a way that most of the professionals, and Michele, you probably feel this way too, that most of the other professionals in our field didn't or couldn't. So I saw a niche for myself, and I saw a way to help the population as well as our organizations by championing home and community-based services And I knew that niche wasn't being filled at the time. Of course, that was 30 years ago. But I continued to see that need, and I continued to want to see our network of our providers, our members, as you would say, Melissa, I wanted to see our members be greater beacons of resources for our seniors and their families. And then, you know, you kind of think sometime in your career, should I switch? But then the personal hit. So both parents were clients of our services, and one of my parents was in a members nursing community. So it just keeps affirming that this is the right field, and it's the right field for me.
Yeah, and I do think, particularly amongst leading age, there's just such this sense of belonging, right? Like once you come to that first conference, you can create this network of people that, you know, we joke that the big annual meeting of National is like Thanksgiving dinner, right? You're all rushing and squealing like at airport reunions and all that. But I do think, right, that helps, is that you see people that you love and respect, and you can create these personal relationships in addition to the professional, that you know you can call somebody and say, I'm having this challenge. Have you had this challenge? How did you deal with that? And I think that, listen, this is the only field I've really been in for 20 years, but I like to think it's unique to us when we talk to students who are thinking about getting into, you know, older adult services and supports instead of maybe healthcare administration on the hospital side, that this is a really unique trait of our organizations.
Yeah, it is.
What is one common myth about our field, about not-for-profit aging services, life plan communities, home and community-based services, anything you know, however you want to kind of describe field for you? What's one common myth that you'd like to debunk?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple. One is that people used to ask me, isn't it depressing to work there? Is it depressing? Being with those old people, isn't it depressing? Isn't it depressing running a hospice? Isn't it depressing? That's a myth. Yes, we have sad moments, and yes, we have loss at our communities and in our agencies. But the energy around performance improvement, quality, customer satisfaction, if you will, is stimulating, and the growth in our field, the options in our field for the future are exciting. So I'll say that first thing is that, no, it's not depressing. You know, are there depressing moments when you lose a favorite resident? Sure. Or in our case, we just lost a wonderful employee. And yeah, that's really, really sad. So I will say that. And I think the other thing I would say is that there's a myth that we're not as good as others in healthcare. So we're not as important as a hospital administrator or clinic administrator, or, you know, that we're just not as good, not as important. And if you look at our membership, we are a highly educated, highly professionalized group. So I would say those are two myths.
Yeah,
really good points, Nancy. I'm coming from another perspective, although I agree 100% with what you just said. I would like to debunk the notion of what hospitality means in our field.
Go tell us more.
Well, you know, I'm always trying to be somewhat controversial. You know, and I guess what I'm thinking of is that, you know, residents really don't want to be waited on in independent living. They want empowerment, they want respect, you know, they want a voice in how they live out the last years of their lives. And I don't know that we have really embraced engagement the way we ought to. And by engagement, I mean fulfilling the goal of self-actualization. You know, I realize now that I'm 66 years old that I haven't quite arrived there. And boy, would I love it if I could go into a CCRC, or what we call life plan community, which I hope to do one day. And I think that life plan communities really have to put the meat on what a life plan community is. And I think that there's this idea that we can just do a name change and it's all good. And I really feel like we have to start helping our residents attain their self-actualization. And to do that, we need to get much more personalized and individualized. And yes, that takes some time, but there are some systemic ways to do that. And that's why our life plan survey, I think, is going to be important, because what we're doing is we're cataloging a profile of what the organizational culture looks like, but then we're also asking individual residents, tell us what you hope and dream for the last third of your life, and how can we facilitate that process? Because we can't do it for them. It's an individualized thing. Right. So I guess that's what I would debunk in terms of maybe the approach.
Yeah. Well, and also the myth that you can't find new purpose or renewed purpose or achieve self-actualization in the last third of your life, right? Which I think is a myth, that once you retire, or I shouldn't even say once you retire, once you move into a community like one of our member communities, like as we know, it ends. And I think we know from being around residents and families and clients and the people that we serve that like that's the point, right? Like
that is the point.
Suddenly you're freed up so much of your lifestyle so that you can hopefully pursue the things that have either been dormant or new things that you want to start. I mean, that's my dream, right? When you don't have to, you know.
I totally support that, because, you know, we have stagnation versus generativity. If you go to the developmental stages, and generativity is yeah, I have this time now, maybe I even have resources. And so this idea that we're serving, I understand that in healthcare. I understand that as an overall mission, but I think we're really facilitating, like Michele used that word. And I appreciate that, because there is a lot of paternalistic cultures. And I think that the next generation of leaders has to really think about their organization in terms of, well, who do I want in my leadership team, and who else supports the self-determination of older adults?
Yeah, it's interesting. Our vision, Leading Age Virginia, is positive aging for each Virginian. And that doesn't say who live in one of our member communities or utilize the services of one of our member organizations. And I always say, because our members, hopefully, Michele, to your point, eventually should be a platform to catalyze that positive aging experience, right? And so they're, and you know, hopefully at some point, no matter where you are on the socioeconomic spectrum, you have the opportunity to live like that. And we certainly aren't there, at least the way the current system is put together. But that is the hope. Let me ask the opposite question, kind of, not really the opposite, but I guess the question is, what has surprised you most about working in this field?
Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, I will tell you what surprised me most, because when I started out, it was not my goal to work in aging services. I was a master's in social work intern, and my internship got canceled, and I was like, I've got to have something, just put me anywhere 10 minutes from my house. That's how uninvolved I was. And they put me at Breckenridge Village, which is a community in Ohio. And I was so surprised that it was fun. It's fun, and it's family, and there's parties, and there's buffets, and there's
Not anymore.
dances. Not anymore. Yeah, sorry, on the buffet.
No more ixnay on the buffet.
Ixnay on the dances.
No, not the dances. We can dance. We just can't have buffets where we're all walking up to the sneeze guard. I don't think we're allowed to have that anymore.
It is a family.
Yeah.
It is this, I think in our membership, I don't know of anybody I've met at a community that didn't feel part, belonged. I didn't know that was what work was about. I didn't know you could get so much support from being a part of something besides your family or your friends.
How about you, Michele?
Okay, well, I hope I'm not being politically incorrect, but I'm surprised we don't have more women CEOs in our field.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, that is not meant as a comment in any way to disparage all the wonderful males.
Of course.
You have them. They are fantastic. But I'm just surprised that we don't have more females. And Nancy and I are working on a forum together where we're bringing this to light. And we've made some progress, but it has not been nearly as accelerated as I would have hoped. I mean, we should at least be 50-50 at this point, and we're not.
It's not surprising. It's shocking. It's really shocking.
What is the number, Nancy? You researched this.
Yeah, 85% of the employees of senior living are female. 70% of the managers in senior living are female. Okay, managers, 18% of the CEOs are female.
18, that's too low. That's not right.
It's shocking.
And you know what else is shocking? And I remember this, Michele, from when we were in Colorado for the Holleran retreat a few years ago. I remember the veteran female CEOs counseling the newer female CEOs around wage disparity, around contract, around employment agreement, because many of them did not have it. They did not know how to approach it. Right. And it was wonderful to have that group that could counsel them and say, this is how you, because we know the male CEOs do have those. And so I agree, that is, I mean, that's shocking.
Yep, it is.
And that's a whole separate podcast. So I feel like we can do that one when you're ready, because I know we have a lot to talk about. You know, one of the things that I appreciate about both of you is that you're educators and you continue to want to be educated. You love to learn. Michele, I know at any given day, there's like 19 books on your nightstand that I'm probably exaggerating the number a little bit.
My shelf there.
Yeah. Is that everything you're reading right now? So talk a little bit about how that, I mean, Nancy, you're an avid reader. What is that thirst for more knowledge, for learning more things? How does that inform, you know, your professional life, your personal life? Just, you have that in common. So just a little bit around your ability to educate others, and then your desire to continue to learn more.
Okay, Michele, it's your turn to go first.
All right, I'll go first. Well, Nancy and I are both fortunate enough, and I do mean fortunate, to have later in life gone back and got our PhDs. Yep. And one of the things that I remember in my PhD program that a professor taught me was, the more you know, the more you don't know. So the wisdom was that just because you have an advanced degree, don't think you know it all, because you certainly do not. And so I've always lived by that. And I really have been to the point where my thirst for knowledge gets even greater, because it's not just book learning. You know, I have millennials on my staff who just teach me so much. I mean, they are fascinating in terms of what they know and what I don't know.
Mhm.
My children, the same thing.
Yeah.
And I know Nancy has millennials as well.
Yeah.
So I just think that listening to younger voices at this point in my career is so rich in terms of my education. And yes, I love to teach, but I've learned the more I keep my mouth shut, the smarter I am.
And I hope to learn that one day.
Learned it.
Just being real. Just being real. Yeah. You know what? It is what I think drives me is it's those, oh, I get it moments, or those aha moments where you got something going on at work or at home. You read something, you go to something, you attend something, and you make that connection. And anytime I can connect something that's maybe broader to a real situation, it gets me so motivated then to apply it. So I'm enjoying that. And that's self-reinforcing because, okay, I learned this, I tried this, and it's kind of fueling positive things. One thing I have done that I haven't done in my whole life that I've started doing is reading fiction. I was not a fiction reader. I'm a nonfiction reader. Again, you got to be serious. You got to do everything for your job, you know. But I've learned that the learning from and the richness of nonfiction is great for learning about people.
Mm.
And you read big fiction, like you're reading Ken Follett. I mean,
Yeah, big
insane 1,000-page. That'd be like the rest of my life.
That is insane. I cop to that.
But I do make note of your book recommendations when you post them. And I just finished Between Two Kingdoms, by the way, which is nonfiction and was extraordinary.
Oh,
Could I do a shout out to Dr. King?
oh.
Yes, I was just going to start calling you both doctor because I should have.
No. But Nancy has done a marvelous series that you may know about, Melissa, on diversity and inclusion. And it's just an example of how, you know, at this stage in her career, she could rest on her laurels, but she's always reaching out and doing the new thing. She has a marvelous book, if you haven't read that, called Fired. And, you know, she's just always on the cusp of something new and discovering new theories and new concepts and connecting the dots in new ways. And so, you know, what a marvelous
educator.
That's
very nice of you. Thank you.
It's true. And it's funny. It kind of sounds similar to what you do, Michele. I mean,
you pivoted in Holleran.
Yeah, creating new things. Yeah. I mean, like that's the point, right? So that leads into my next question, which is kind of circling back. You said, Nancy, at the beginning that, you know, you were always focused in the beginning of your career of getting it right? Competence and confidence, somebody said to me the other day. Are you afraid of failure?
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yes.
But do you fail?
Oh, yeah.
And so then what happens?
Yeah, well, I cry and I talk to my friend Michele, and she coaches me and she encourages me. But you know, you're dealing with people. How can you not fail? It's
right.
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Right. How about you, Michele?
Oh, goodness, yes. You know, this COVID thing really hit Holleran. I mean, it was awful. And I had to do layoffs, and it was just, you know, really, really difficult. And as much as you can say, well, that was an external event, you know, there was a part of me that said, gosh, I should have been better prepared. You know, should have been, you know, seeing this coming, because, you know, I pride myself on being kind of futuristic in terms of, you know, anticipating things and always having contingency plans. And
you think you should have anticipated a pandemic?
Well, I'm just saying that it was,
Wow.
I did feel like
Aw.
part of me failed.
Yeah.
But
Aw.
I also feel like, I could have folded up my tent and just said, okay, I give up.
Yes.
And I didn't, and my staff didn't. And the staff that, are at Holleran are very committed to what they're doing. And, gosh, if they wouldn't have stuck by me, I don't know what I would have done. I mean,
Yeah.
they are a marvelous group of people. So I just have to say, yeah, I fail.
Well,
I
and I
I
think
get that.
for the younger leaders who are listening to this, to recognize that people who are, consummate professionals in our field, we say failure is not an option, but with innovation, it's risk, right? And if you're not innovating, if you're not recreating, then kind of what's the point, right? You're growing and you're expanding, and so there is always the risk of failure. It's just being able to get back up and to learn from it and to have that inform what you do next. So I'm watching the clock because I could talk to you both for hours, as you know, especially if we had wine and cheese. But how do you define success for yourself?
Go ahead, Nancy.
You know what? To be honest, I don't think about the word success. I just don't.
What word do you think about?
I think about being satisfied, about achievement, about accomplishment, about contribution. I don't use the word success unless I say, when I'm giving feedback, I want you to be successful. Yeah, I am. I think I feel successful when I help other people be successful, or when I help the organization be successful.
Well, I guess, I'll tell you what I'm proud of. I don't know that I have been successful. What I'm proud of is that I've reared two magnificent children. And that doesn't mean, highly, successful, although both of them are achieving success in their careers. And I think are contributing a lot to their careers. So I am proud of the fact that they're good people and that they care about others. And so that's one of my main definitions of success. I would say another measure of success is that I have had the opportunity to align my career colleagues as my closest friends.
Yeah.
And the down part of that is they're not all next door to me.
Right.
But I can tell you that I just feel so fortunate, and I feel like I was intentional about this. When you're mothering and you're running a household and you're starting and maintaining your career and growing your business, you have to kind of kill two birds with one stone sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for me, a great success marker is that I've been able to count so many of my professional colleagues as my personal closest friends. And so I'd say that my children and my friends in the field.
So we started our conversation with what advice you would give your younger self, just starting out. Sitting where you are today, what advice will you give your older self, who's going to be looking back over these incredible careers, incredible lives filled with family and friends and love and accomplishment and heartache and learning and all of those things? What would you say to your future self right now that you would want them to think as you look back on your life?
I think I would say, enjoy your time and your family and friends, and do what you want. I mean, we don't do what we want now because we have so many responsibilities, But to Michelle's point about self-actualization and the opportunities of aging, I'm looking forward to those. Not that I don't dislike my responsibilities, and but I'm looking forward to having those other opportunities to do things I haven't done and to be with people more that I want to be with.
Yeah.
I would say in my case, strive toward being more humble and vulnerable. And I think when I was in a younger phase of my career, I wanted to put on more of a facade that I was invincible and
Yes.
nothing would shake me. And, you know, I am woman, hear me roar.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we were all very, very influenced by the women's movement, women of my generation. And sometimes that meant being tough. And you do have to be tough. I mean, you have to, you know, you have to put on your best face for your colleagues and your employees when times are tough.
Yeah.
But I also think there's nothing wrong with really being vulnerable and admitting when you're wrong and being a humble leader. And I haven't always been that, I have to admit, but I think that it serves us well, especially when we have the credentials under our belt.
Yeah.
Then you can, you know, kind of let go a bit.
Yes. Yes, and that's why you can fail better.
Yeah.
Because
That's
you're
right.
good to go. You're good to go.
Is there anything I didn't ask you or that you hoped that you would be able to say today that you want to share before we wrap up?
I'll go first. I have something I want to say.
Okay.
I think that years ago, probably 10 years ago, Nancy and I decided that we needed to be on each other's personal board of directors.
Yes.
And so one of the themes of the women's retreat that we've all been involved in together is having your wolf pack. And so, you know, a wolf pack is a group of other women who you trust with your life. And I want to just say that you two are in my wolf pack, and I very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
Ooh. Like, terrible.
Thank you.
Terrible. Right. How about thank you? And I
Thanks,
concur.
Michelle.
What do you have? Anything else you wanted to share, Nance?
Well, I was going to share that in a different way. But just to say, I hope that the folks who are listening and to the podcast or watching it can see the genuine friendship and love that we have for each other. And there used to be this rule that you had to compartmentalize work and personal lives. And I think if not for the women in our field, especially as you go up the ladder, if not for those folks, I think that it would have been much, much harder for both of us and much less enjoyable. So I would encourage people to take that leap of faith and find those trusted folks that you can call friends.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to both of you because you've been such mentors to me, and you paved the way for a lot of us younger leaders, not a lot younger, a lot of us women who are coming behind. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And you laid the groundwork for what we could aspire to and what we could, and you're who you've brought so many people up in your work. You've lifted so many people up, men and women, but particularly, I mean, being a woman myself, you've lifted us up, and for me to learn from you around how do you balance your personal life with your professional life, and how do you, and that's one of the reasons we need them to merge, right? Because we're trying to live both. And so
do men.
That's right. That's exactly
right. We need it to merge.
That's right. 100%. So you're just such incredible women and treasures in my life. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to talk to me today and share your stories with our listeners. So thank you so much for being here.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Michele, for being my friend. And thank you for Melissa for being my friend.
Oh, thank
I love
you.
you guys.
So
they're marvelous women. I mean, all that we've talked with before have been marvelous, but you know, they're top of the field, top of everything. Top of everything. And I'm glad I've gotten to work with them, you know, over the past few years. So it's been very good. Very good. Yeah.
This was especially exciting for me because of, you know, my long-standing relationships. You know, Michele mentioned when she was asked to help design the Leadership Academy curriculum and facilitate that. And I was in the office with Larry when he made that call. So I remember that day, and I remember thinking, I want to be a part of this when I saw that first group. And eventually I got to be a part of the Academy. Michele was no longer facilitating, but just the impact that those two women have had in their professional lives. And then knowing that they also have these incredibly full personal lives as well. And yet time to read 92 books.
Yeah. Yeah, just to be able to, I mean, share their knowledge with all the ones that they have worked with and you know, mentored and all that kind of stuff up through the years. Yeah, it's fabulous. And you started our Leadership Academy here, did you?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, I hired somebody to start.
But
yes, we launched when I came
yes.
to Leading Age Virginia.
Excuse me, wrong word, launched.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there would be a lot to unpack in the conversation that we just had, but one of the things that I really appreciate is just with all the podcasts we've had has been, you know, the authenticity, the willingness to really reflect and share the truth of their perception of their younger selves or what they want for their later years. And also, you know, Michele and Nancy are really, they've always been very forward thinking about the field and thinking of ways that we can improve and that we don't need to be the traditional bricks and mortar, and there could be more to that. So I think that has been a gift to everybody who has worked with them and been around them, been colleagues with them.
Yeah, and that as they were talking, I'm thinking, yes, I'm getting all the women together on the education subcommittee for the Women in Leadership Committee. And it's like, okay, Michele, you just nailed it on the head what we're going to do for our 3-hour impact session, you know, something like that. So
yeah,
I thought that was pretty good. But what really struck me, and because I've lived this all my life, and when Nancy, well, it's two things. When Nancy said, you know, isn't it depressing to work with the aging people? And it's like, and that's what I got when I worked in hospice. Isn't it depressing to work with those dying? No, it's very enlightening. You learn so much, just as they both said. You learn from who you talk with. You learn from, you know, the growth that you've done through reading or just, you know, kind of analyzing yourself and things like that. But then when they were talking about or Michele was talking about self-actualization, I have always said that you have to continue to have a dream until you're on your deathbed. You have to continue to have that dream in order to become self-actualized. And a couple of the books I'm reading now, they're calling it something different. So I need to finish those books to understand where they're coming from. But it's like, you know, those individuals, residents that are in the communities, you can't just, you know, plop them down and say, okay, this is it. They have to continue, even if the staff motivate them to learn more, to do more, you know, to find those dreams that maybe they once set aside because they thought they couldn't do it. You know, I think that's very important. So again, I was thinking of, education for resident services and social workers and activity folks is like, how can we get them to understand that residents aren't just there to play games and stuff like that. They're really there to be motivated to become better people, even at 80, 90, whatever, you know?
Because a life without purpose, what is that? Yeah.
Good.
Well, thank you. Another wonderful time recording with you. I appreciate it.
This has been fun. Thanks.